Welcome to the Beyond Average podcast, where we highlight entrepreneurs who are building valuable, transferable enterprises by focusing on the four intangible capitals and drive growth in higher multiples. So I'm Kristin Carlson, and today's guest is Karen Ross, and she's the partner, accountant, and enrolled agent at Palermo, Landsman and Ross, PA. So Karen, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. So can you just share how you got into accounting and how you started to lead your organization?
I actually have a really unique story. I was eligible to graduate early, but the county from high school, I was eligible to graduate early, but the county that I lived in said, nope, we're not going to allow that anymore. So I was doing on-the-job training for Outback Steakhouse during the daytime because I had worked there at night. And the opportunity they had open for me during the day, during my school hours, was admin and accounting related. So I started doing that accounting type stuff at age 17. I moved up from the Florida Keys, which is where I was living, up to Fort Lauderdale, and I continued to do that admin type of work and still, wait tables at night. And then I ended up waiting tables on the staff accountant of this firm at the time. And I was hired pretty quickly from there. And I started here at the firm as a bookkeeper and I grew from there.
Awesome. So how did it transition into being a partner? Did you have to put in so much time, or what was the requirements becoming a partner?
I started as a bookkeeper and I always wanted to learn. It's just my personality. I'm really always trying to grow and learn new things. My dad always taught me, be the person they can never fire, right? Learn everything, learn everyone's jobs. And so I started in bookkeeping and then I learned tax. And then I took an interest in IRS dispute. The only partner here at the time, the only owner, Artie Palermo at the time, he really needed some assistance with IRS dispute, similar to like a paralegal assisting attorneys, right? Doing all the document, gathering all the information, getting everything together, communicating with the IRS on, just getting some information. And so I started that way and I really fell in love with the business. So now I've got three skills under me: bookkeeping, tax preparation, and IRS dispute. And I was going through college at FAU. I was doing their undergrad accounting program. Wasn't really sure if I wanted to do tax yet at that point. And I said to myself, well, I want to bring in a book of business, but I had no designation. So nobody's going to trust a 20-something-year-old that has no designation that's still in college. So what I did was I did self-study and took all of my EA enrolled agent exams and I passed my enrolled agent exam and boom, I got, IRS level clearance. It's similar to a CPA in terms of representation. You're not a CPA. You can't sign audited financial statements, but you could still represent clients in front of the IRS the same way that a CPA would. And it's really tax specific. So I started to get out into the public. I had amazing mentors here at the firm that really trained me in how to be personable, how to connect with business owners and individuals. And I started to bring in business. And eventually that business just grew. And I had this really great book. And Artie Palermo was looking to build his succession plan. And he did that within the firm. And myself, Brett Landsman, we became part of that succession plan.
Awesome. So this enrolled agent, does that give you like a back door to the IRS? I mean, does it give you some
I
additional
wouldn't
paths?
say that. I will say from my experience, and I have 2 decades in this experience by now, I would say that because of not all CPAs, but because of some of the temperaments of CPAs with the Internal Revenue Service, with audits, they tend to be, this is coming from the IRS, they tend to be a little cocky, maybe a little um, authoritative, more adversarial, and not all CPAs know IRS practices and procedure. They know tax, or they know accounting, or they know forensic accounting. An enrolled agent is an IRS designation. I am enrolled, I wouldn't call it a license, but I'm enrolled through the IRS. So everything I know is tax, including IRS processes and procedures. And I say all of that to say, when I'm dealing with an audit or I'm calling the IRS and working through some type of IRS dispute, they see my designation and they're like, she knows. She knows the processes, she knows the procedures. She's one of us, right? And so I would say it gives me an advantage. Certainly not a back door. That would be amazing if I had that.
Okay, but you do understand their processes to really help the cases that you're representing. So,
Yeah, and I really approach it from a non-adversarial. I get referred audits from other tax firms. I get referred audits from other accountants, even attorneys. Um, because they know my history and the way that I work with the IRS. And I basically go into, let's say it's an audit. I basically go into that auditor and I say, listen, I'm here to represent this taxpayer and to be the liaison and make sure that the taxpayer understands their obligations and to make sure that their rights are being protected. And when you come in from this, collaborative approach, but still being really witty and really smart and really on top of your game, the IRS tends to take their guard down and say, okay, we're dealing with someone that knows what they're doing. They're not going to take any of our nonsense or crap. They're not going to get pushed around. And it just makes for an easier process in anything dealing with the IRS.
Awesome. So I know beyond the technical side, you are a great leader in your organization, and you
Thank
had
you.
mentioned that you're have mentors. So describe the culture that you guys have created at your company?
The culture here really started with Artie Palermo and his dream. He was working for a family accountant many, many years ago, and he just wanted to do things differently. And he went out on his own. He went out on his own with his sister-in-law and his best friend. And so they went from 3 people to almost 30. And that's all because of culture. And Artie is such a phenomenal leader in the sense that he doesn't hoard information. He doesn't hoard clients. He's so confident in his experience, in his skill set as a leader, that he's not afraid to teach the people around him, including his staff, what he knows, how to do it, how to be successful. He's very giving and loving. So he basically identified the people in the firm that could be the next generation of leaders and lead like he did. And when you have this culture and this camaraderie versus a hierarchy, it really does drive intentional value. We drive human capital. We really empower our employees to make decisions. I want to teach them everything that I know because that's what Artie did for me. And
Mhm.
it's just really passing that torch.
Awesome, awesome. So, what are some of the things you do to strengthen your team or build the team, or when you're hiring, how do you find the right people?
We're always team building, whether it's dressing up for Halloween, going to a Galentine's breakfast, all of those like really fun, quirky things, right? And I think all firms should do that. You have to invest in your people. And the flip side of that is, well, how do you drive positive culture during those stressful times? This is a stressful career. This is a stressful job. We're dealing, we're boots on the ground behind enemy lines all the time, right? We're dealing with deadlines, constant legislative changes, lack of clarity, AI. There are so many things that we're dealing with at the firm level. I really feel like communication and understanding and setting those expectations really high of our staff, but also checking our yardstick and coming down to where they're at, meeting them where they're at and showing them this is where you could be if you want to. You don't have to be. No one's going to think less of you. And making sure everyone feels important in that process. Every single person here, from an onboarder to a receptionist to Artie Palermo, we're all on the same playing field. It's just who has different skill sets. And it really is about empowering them to make decisions and see their value, which really keeps the culture uplifted. And so the team building is huge, giving them the opportunity to get involved in a lot of the same networking and educational opportunities as the partners, that upper level. And when we're hiring, I've always said, if I'm a really good leader, I could teach anybody anything, right? I came here with no skill set and now I'm a partner. I became a partner at age 28 or 29, somewhere in there. So I was only here for like 7 or 8 years before I became a partner. If you're a great leader, you could teach anything, but they have to fit into the culture. So when we're interviewing, obviously we're looking for skill set. We're looking for CPAs, enrolled agents, accounting majors, masters in taxation. We're looking for the skill set, but you have to fit the culture. You have to have that entrepreneurial mentality. You have to have that collaborative, intentional workspace. And so we really look for that in our people. And they got to love movies and they got to have fun.
Yeah, awesome. And that is a dichotomy for what you would think of an accounting firm. So it seems like you do have something very unique and special.
Yeah, we are definitely unique.
Yeah. So any lessons learned from a leadership perspective that you'd want to share?
How many hours do you have? I actually my leadership lessons are learned from my my business partners, Artie, Brett, and Dean. And believe it or not, my son, Peyton. My son Peyton is an Eagle Scout, and always thrived in leadership. And I really learned leadership through him, and I learned to lead by following. I'm a shepherder. And I used to be such a A-type stickler for details and I wanted everything to be perfect. And I would come down so hard on people when they would make mistakes. And I would think to myself, like, why aren't they at my level? Why? And then I learned that like that's not the way this works. And people have been patient with me and understanding with me both in my firm and outside of my firm. Even my colleagues have been very patient in showing me something on a K1 schedule for reporting purposes. So I just learned something that already taught me a long time ago, climb off of Mount Olympus. And so my leadership style is very much now, very much shepherding and leading from behind and empowering them enough to make mistakes, but being them to support them when they do make mistakes and giving them that decision-making capability and the confidence. I want them to be confident in their decision making, but when they make a mistake, not be fearful to come to us if they make a mistake.
Awesome. And I truly believe that's why I laugh because I was just repeating that in another conversation, just like how do we raise everyone else's skill set? Because then we'll be so much more successful, right? And
Well,
uh,
and this next generation, I'm 40. I don't hide this. I don't hide my age. I celebrate it. I turned 40 this year. I'm a little more mature than the average 40-year-old. But I am looking at the generations ahead of me that brought me where I'm at, and I'm looking at the generations behind me that are going to support me. And so now I'm in that space in the middle of my career where I have to say, well, this younger generation, they have so much value.
mhm.
There's so much value. We just have to be able and willing to connect with them at their level. And there's this, oh, these millennials. No, we don't do that here. We don't say that here. We don't talk about the next generation and what their inadequacies may be because of the way that they were led and the way they were taught. That's not innate, right? So what we're doing is we're just kind of like breaking the cycle and teaching them all of these all of these character traits and qualities that you have that are admirable for your generation can be paired with the older generation to make magic.
Exactly. That is perfect. So, Karen, to wrap up, I mean, what advice would you give for somebody that is just starting in your field?
Be humble. Listen more than you speak. My dad always said you have two ears and one mouth, so you should listen twice as much as you speak. Learn networking, learn people. And when you're networking, your your question to anybody you meet should always be, how can I help you? What do you need? How can I support you? And that seems to get me everywhere I need to go. We all start our careers at the bottom of the barrel, taking whatever clients we need, working gazillions of hours, doing things that today I would never do. But you have to be willing to do those things to get to the next level. So, that would be another piece of advice. And just, don't be afraid of your own integrity. This imposter syndrome that word that's tossed around so much it's just, I don't even believe in it anymore. It's have the confidence in yourself, network, be personable with people, be other centered, and just come into your space willing to do whatever it takes. But when you get to that next level, setting those boundaries so that maybe what's acceptable back then is no longer acceptable and just keep raising that bar.
Awesome. Well, Karen, thank you so much for sharing your greatness with us. I am excited about your company and what you're building, right? I think that's really what differentiates you and makes it even more valuable. So thanks for joining us
Thank
today.
you. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. And just remember that average businesses are owner dependent and beyond average businesses are enterprise ready. So have a super day.